This is a bonus session for the lesson for American Style Mahjong, also known as the National Mahjong League. I want to share with you some common variations that I've heard and actually participated in while playing Mahjong. So you may run across some of these, or maybe you do some of these, I don't know. So the first one I want to talk about is the three-player game. And the three-player game is actually condoned by the league, but when you play the three-player game, you're not supposed to do the Charleston. You're supposed to omit the Charleston. So the variation is that you add the Charleston. And I actually did a demonstration of this in another video. So if you want to see how that's done, just look for the three-player game. There's also another player variation, and that's a five-player game. The five-player game is when you have four players actually playing a hand, and there's a fifth player sitting out. And when the dealer for that current game, or when the hand is complete, the dealer for that game then sits out, and the person sitting out prior sits where that East player was sitting, and then they play a hand, and the next East would then sit out, and the previous player would then sit in. So it's kind of a leapfrog, I guess you could say. So you're going to play four hands and then sit out. Now, there's one other variation with a five-player game, and that is betting. So this fifth player would look at everybody's hand right after the Charleston, just prior to East discarding the first tile. They would have some kind of an indicator to choose which player they think are going to win. And it may be a dial, wind of the round indicator. It could be just, I don't know, a sticky note. And they're going to pick who they think will win. If they are correct, they will get paid just like the winner gets paid. If they are incorrect and somebody else wins, they have to pay just like the other players pay. They can also choose a wall game. So that's called betting on the wall. The wall wins. So if that happens, everybody pays the lowest value of the card to that player. So that's the those are the five-player options. The next one that I want to share with you is a player rotation. There are, I'm sure, many ways to do a player rotation, but this is the most common that I know of. Everybody sits at the table, and whoever is the first dealer would trade places with the player on their right every fourth game. So if you're using dice, this is easy to mark. You just roll the dice, break the wall, play the game, and then the dice go to the next player. So that next player will be East, roll the dice, break the wall, deal the tiles, play the game, and then the next player is East. When those dice get back to the original East, that's when they switch with the player on their right. So that's just your basic player rotation, and it just keeps the Charleston passing fresh. So the other house rule that I want to share is something called a pie. A pie is an established amount of money that is the maximum amount allowed for a player to lose. So if you're having a bad day and you just can't get a win, you'll never lose more than your pie. The kind of standard pie that I'm aware of is $5. I have heard people have a $3 pie, but $5 pie is kind of standard. So you'll never lose more than $5 if there's a $5 pie established. If you do lose your pie, you can continue playing, you just don't have to pay any winners, which leads me to the other house rule, and that's called a wall game kitty. So there's a little bowl or a baggie or a little purse, whatever they choose as a vessel for wall games. When there is a wall game, each of the players puts a quarter into the kitty. If somebody goes pie or loses their pie and somebody wins, they are paid for that person who went pie out of the kitty. At the end of the night, if there's money left over in the kitty, then they just divide it amongst the players and call it a night. The next house rule that I want to share is a hot wall. When you sit down to play, the first East will roll the dice and break the wall. Let's say that they roll a 5. So they're going to count right to left 5 stacks. So it'll be 10 tiles. And they're going to make a break in the wall. Those 10 tiles are called the hot wall. The game proceeds, and when and if the game goes all the way to that last bit, that wall right in front of East where that wall was broken, and now those 10 tiles are in play, meaning you're picking and discarding out of that wall that remained on the East wall. If a player throws a discard and somebody wins, they have to pay the value of the hand for the whole table. And that just forces everybody to play very defensively because they don't want to pay for the whole table. So that's a hot wall. There's also something called a cold wall, and it's kind of a similar concept. Basically, it's the same wall. Instead of a hot wall, it's a cold wall. When you have a cold wall, when that wall is in play, meaning you're picking and discarding from that last wall in front of East, you cannot claim a discard to win. You have to draw your winning tile yourself. That's a cold wall. The next house rule that I want to share is a new hand, an additional hand outside of the card called atomic. And the atomic hand is 7 unique pair. It's basically an Asian hand. In the Asian versions, there's a hand just called 7 unique pair. And so somehow it got adopted into some American style groups. So when you look at your drawn hand, if you have no flowers or jokers, you can declare that you are going to play an atomic hand. So you have to put up some kind of a token on your rack to identify that you are playing an atomic hand. And people pick maybe a penny or a button or, I don't know, whatever, some kind of a token to identify that you're playing an atomic hand. The players at the table cannot pass flowers to you during the Charleston. So that puts a hardship on the rest of the players. So this really is not a very popular house rule, but it is played, and I'm not sure why. I'd be interested to find out why people play atomic. But anyway, after the Charleston, this player who is playing an atomic hand, if they draw a flower or a joker, they are no longer atomic, and they have to switch their hand to something on the card, which is very difficult to do. The last house rule that I want to talk about, or a variation, I guess, is called a mush. And a mush is, well, first let me talk about the Charleston. The Charleston is made up of 6 passes, 7 if the optional cross is involved. So we pass 3 tiles to the right, 3 tiles across, 3 tiles to the left, then we go left, across, and then right. And then finally we do an optional cross pass. The mush is another pass into the middle of the table up to 3 tiles. So let's say I want to mush 2 tiles. I'm going to put my 2 tiles in the middle, and everybody else who wants to mush will put their tiles in the middle. Again, it's 1, 2, or 3 tiles. Whatever you put in, that's what you take out after they've been mixed up. So those are the most common house rules or variations that I'm aware of. If you know of more, I would love to hear about them. Put them in the comment section. And if you decide to establish any of these yourself, let me know. I'd be interested to see how they're received. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do. And also, if you do subscribe, there's a little bell. If you click that bell, you'll also get notification of when I post new videos. So until you come back to my channel, may all your picks be keepers.